Solving multi-step equations, lesson 8 notes. Example number 3. When you look at example number 3 here, these are all multi-step equations. When you look at them, what's the first thing you see? What's the thing that kind of scares you about these problems? And usually when I ask that question, I always get the same answer, and that is the fact that there are fractions. Well, I'm going to teach you an easy way to do these problems and not have to worry about the fractions. So, at the top of your page, above number 3, I want you to write this down. To get rid of fractions, multiply every term by the least common denominator, which is the LCM, the least common multiple of the denominator. So, write that down. Once you've written it down, we'll talk more about this. Pause your video and do that. Okay, so again, to get rid of the fractions, we have to multiply every single term by the LCD. So let's talk about LCD, LCM, and all that lovely stuff. What I want you to do is I want you to go to the next page in Notability, and I want you to start writing this stuff down. So let's first start with the LCD. Your LCD is your least common denominator. You've done this before. You should know what I'm talking about. And the LCM is your least common multiple. Pause your video, write that down. So, to do these problems, to figure out what the LCD or the LCM is, the first thing you want to do is ask yourself, does the smaller number divide into the larger number? Does the smaller numbers divide into the largest number? All right, so when I see, remember, we're only worried about the denominator. So here are my 3 numbers in the denominator. I got 3, 6, and 12. So the very first thing you want to do is determine, do these smaller numbers divide into that larger number? Okay, so if the smaller number, the first question is, does the smaller number or numbers divide into the largest number? If yes, then the largest number is your LCM. Your largest number is the LCM or LCD. If no, then you list one multiple at a time of the largest number to see if it is the LCM. Now that might be completely confusing what I just wrote there, but that's okay. I'll explain what I mean in a moment. Right now I just want you to pause your video and get everything written down. All right, so let me tell you what I mean. So let's do some examples. Okay, let's start with example number 1. We've got 3 and 8. I want to find the least common multiple of 3 and 8. Well, one way to do it is to simply start listing multiples. So let's start with 3. Your multiples of 3 are 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, 33. I think I'm going to stop there for now. I'm going to put the ellipse. Remember, the ellipse means that it keeps going. All right, so right now let's stop there. Those are our multiples of 3. Okay, what are the multiples of 8? We've got 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 8 times 3 is 24. 32. 40. 48. And we'll stop there. Okay, so now that I've listed the multiples of both, find the smallest number that they both have in common. Find the smallest number that 3 and 8 both have in common. Well, that number would be 24. Therefore, my LCM is 24. Now, that's the long method. Nobody wants to do it that way, right? That's the long method. So let's go back to what I said over here. Oh, go ahead and pause your video and get that all written down first. Let's go back down, or back over to here. The first question you want to ask yourself is, does the smaller number divide into the larger number? So, does 3 divide into 8? No, it doesn't. All right? So, if it does not, then list one multiple at a time of the largest number. That's the key. Start listing one multiple at a time of the largest number. So, let's put this down. Put easier method. And start listing the multiples of 8. Okay? And then you ask yourself, does 3 divide into 8? No, it doesn't. So go to the next multiple. Does 3 divide into 16? No, it doesn't. So go to the next multiple. Does 3 divide into 24? Yes, it does. So right there, all I had to do was list 3 multiples, and I was done. So it's much quicker and much easier to do it this way. So my LCM is 24. So that's the quicker and easier way of doing it. All right, so let's do example number 2. Example number 2 is 6 and 12. So what's the first thing we want to do? We want to ask ourselves, does the smaller number divide into the larger number? Does 6 divide into 12? Yes, it does. Okay, so I want you to write in parentheses, 6 divides into 12. Because 6 divides into 12, that means our LCM is 12. There's no work involved. This number goes into that number, so that is our LCM. Let's look at example 3. Make sure you're pausing your video and writing all of this down. Example number 3. We've got 6, 8, and 12. So the first thing we want to do is ask ourselves, do the smaller numbers, do these divide into 12? Well, 6 does. 6 divides into 12, but 8 doesn't. All right? So if the answer is no, then you start listing your multiples of the largest number. So we'll start with 12. Yes, 6 goes into 12, but 8 doesn't. The next multiple of 12 is 24. Does 6 go into 24? Yes, it does. Does 8 go into 24? Yes, it does. Therefore, we're done. Our LCM is 24. All right, excuse me. Let's look at example 4. Does 6 go into 18? Yes, it does. Does 12 go into 18? No, it does not. So 18 is not our LCM. So let's start listing the multiples of 18. All right, so we already discussed 6 does go into 18, but 12 doesn't. So the next multiple of 18, this is where you might need to use a calculator here, but 18 times 2 is 36. Does 6 go into 36? Yes, it does. 6 times 6 is 36. Does 12 go into 36? Yes, it does. 12 times 3 is 36. Therefore, our LCM is 36. All right, so that's how You find the LCM. And when you find the LCM of the denominators, then you find the least common denominator. And you're going to multiply everything by that least common denominator. So I want you to make sure you have all of this written down. Because when I go to check your notes, if this is not written down, I will be taking points off. So please make sure you have that written down. Okay, if you have any questions on finding your least common denominator or your least common multiple, please let me know.